They laughed at him, not because he was funny, but because they thought he'd never become anything, you see. When people call you useless, they don't just insult your actions, they insult your existence. They brand you like some broken tool thrown into the back of the shed, rusting in silence, collecting dust while the world moves on without you. And the worst part, he believed them for a while. Because when every voice around you echoes the same message, even your own mind starts whispering it back. Maybe I am useless. He carried that weight, quietly, no outburst, no tears, just a tightening in his chest every time he woke up and remembered what the world thought of him. They mocked his dreams, mocked his pace, mocked his silence, but they never understood one thing about him. He wasn't silent because he had nothing to say. He was silent because he was listening, watching, absorbing every ounce of pain, every dismissive glance, every backhanded comment. He was saving it, not to cry over it, not to post about it, but to use it fuel. You see, people think the loudest person in the room is the most dangerous, but they forget a storm never announces itself. It builds, quietly, slowly, invisibly, until it breaks. And when it breaks, it doesn't ask permission. It doesn't knock. It doesn't care who's watching. He trained like that, in silence. While they partied, he planned. While they laughed, he lifted. While they doubted, he disciplined himself. The gym became his therapy. Every drop of sweat was another broken piece of his past falling off him. He punched harder not at a bag, but at every voice that ever said he wouldn't make it. He ran further not from the pain, but through it. He didn't post updates. He didn't ask for support. He didn't want their fake validation anymore. Why? Because he realized something most people never do. If they only care when you win, then don't let them near you when you're losing. He built himself in silence, not for applause, but for revenge. Not the kind that destroys others, but the kind that destroys doubt. You want to know what hurts people the most? It's not getting yelled at. It's watching the person they called useless walk past the men bothered, successful and unreachable. That's what he became. Unreachable because when you climb alone, when you fight for every inch, when you bleed in silence and stitch your own wounds, you don't just become strong, you become untouchable. They tried to call him again suddenly. They remembered his name. Funny how silence becomes attractive once it turns into success. But he didn't answer. Not out of arrogance, but clarity. Where were they when his nights were filled with failure? Where were they when his only conversations were with self-doubt? Where were they when the mirror showed a man who didn't even recognize himself anymore? They weren't there, and that's why they can't be here now. Because he didn't just grow, he outgrew the need for approval, outgrew the fear of being alone, outgrew the chains they wrapped around his name. You know what made him dangerous? Not that he succeeded, but that he stopped caring who noticed. Because when a man stops needing to prove himself, that's when he becomes unstoppable. They said he was useless. Now his name is whispered in rooms he's never walked into. Now his success makes the same mouths that mocked him go quiet. Now their laughter feels like regret. He didn't argue, didn't explain, didn't beg them to understand, because he is the truth. You don't need to convince anyone who you are. Just become it. Let your work scream louder than your wounds. Let your grind bury their gossip. Let your life become the answer to every question they had about your worth. He used to pray they'd believe in him. Now he thanks God they didn't. Because if they had, he might have stayed comfortable. He might have settled. but pain became his personal trainer. Rejection became his roadmap, and silence became his superpower. Now, he walks different, not because of pride, but because he earned every step. Now he talks less, not because he's cold, but because he learned. Power doesn't explain. It just shows up. They watch him now. The same people who said he wouldn't be anything. They double tap his photos. They share his quotes. They say, "I knew him back when." But he doesn't reply, because his reply already exists in who he became. That's the thing about real growth. It doesn't need to announce itself. It changes your life, and then lets the world figure out what happened. So to every person who's ever been called useless, to every man who's ever been underestimated, to every soul who's been laughed at, ignored, dismissed, or broken, don't you dare quit. They only win if you stop. Let them laugh now. Let them walk away. Let them call you every name in the book. But make sure one day they say your name differently, with respect, with confusion, with regret, because the loudest revenge is success no one saw coming, and you're not done yet. Not until their silence matches the one they left you in. Not until the world looks at you and says, "How did he survive that?" And all you'll say is, "I didn't survive it. I used it." You don't need to explain your fire to people who live in shadows. Just burn quietly and let the light speak for itself. This is your comeback story, but only if you write it. So pick up the pen and don't stop until every page screams, "He made them regret ever doubting him."